Bill Wennington gets his first point. Tony on the play. Bulls down by 2 now.
The Charlotte lead is at 2.
Welcome back to the lineup here on Radio DePaul, Chicago's College Connection. And again, you just heard the highlight. Tony Kukoc alley-oop to Bill Wennington in the 95 playoffs. And as we just bring that up, Bill Wennington is on the air with us. Bill, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, terrific. And again, as we mentioned, Bill Wennington, the former Chicago Bull and now current color analyst on ESPN 1000, talking Chicago Bulls with us now. Bill Wennington, I have a question for you, not talking about the current Bulls, but when you played with the Chicago Bulls, do you believe the current defense played now in the NBA is a little too soft, and the defense played back in the day was much more grittier and much more tenacious than we saw, such as with the centers of a Patrick Ewing and Tony Kukoc, I guess, with that you played with back in the day, as you heard the highlight, the alley-oop to yourself?
Well, gritty is a good word. I don't know tenacious. I think guys are just as athletic, maybe even more athletic today on average than they were, back in the 90s and 80s. But I think gritty is a good word because it was much more physical. I think the referees have taken away a lot of the physical contact that you were allowed to have, especially in the low post where big guys were allowed to bump guards as they cut through the lanes, and you could literally stand a guy up. So if a guy was cutting through the lane, I could put my forearm out and stop a guard in his tracks. Now you're not allowed to do that. They call that impeding the progress of an offensive player, and they just don't let you do it. You were allowed to hand check guards, and that's was one of Michael Jordan's strengths. Everybody was trying to grab Michael Jordan, but he was one of the strongest guards in the league. And when he put his hand on you, he could literally steer you where he wanted you to go, not where you wanted to go. So defenses were allowed to do a lot more physical contact play back in the 80s and 90s. But now I think guys on average are just better athletes. Guys are working out much more. So it's not that it's not tenacious. It's just the physicalness of it is different.
Definitely, but I think gritty, physical, and tenacious could be words used to describe the current Chicago Bulls center. Obviously Joakim Noah, and his performance last night I think was really telling of that. Obviously going up against one of the all-time greats in Tim Duncan. Timmy D did have 17 and 12, but I thought Joe did a great job on him last night. What did you see last night? That really keyed that Bulls victory. Was it Joe's defense, or was it Jimmy Butler on Parker and also on the offensive end? What did you see?
Well, defense. Anytime you talk about the Chicago Bulls today, you're going to talk about defense first, and that's what Tom Thibodeau preaches to them, and that's really what they play in their system and how well they work together. Individually, maybe we have guys that aren't great defenders, but we do have very good defenders. Joakim Noah is one of them. Jimmy Butler is another one. Luol Deng was a great one, and when he got traded, you wondered how the defense was going to change because he was one of the guys that was very versatile and could rotate around. But last night I saw just a tremendous defensive effort by Joakim Noah on Tim Duncan, and what he has to do when he has to switch on guards like Tony Parker on a high screen Bulls, because that's what teams are trying to do. They're trying to get mismatches with different players, so trying to get a guard to cover a big guy or a big guy to cover a guard. And Joakim Noah is the best big man in the NBA today, switching and having to play a point guard. And he does it night in and night out and does a pretty good job at it, where the guards aren't able to break him down and get to the basket and score an easy basket. I don't know when I was playing, if I had to switch on to a good guard that was able to penetrate and drive, I was fouling him. In my mind, I knew I was going to have to foul him because there was no way I was going to stay in front of him. But Joe has such quick feet, great lateral movement for a 7-footer. He's able to stay in front of guards and still challenge them if they step back for a long shot and either block the shot or change the shot. So that was one thing, and the other one was the defensive effort by Jimmy Butler, just phenomenal. I think he had 3 steals and just a tremendous job. Some easy breakout layups off those steals. And when you got 2 guys that are that good defensively and are playing that well, that have that high energy defensively, you're going to be successful. And last night they took full advantage of a team in San Antonio that was a little bit down because they have 4 injuries and four key players out, and the Bulls came out and took care of business and did what they needed to do to win.
And again, looking at you mentioned Luol Deng and what he meant to this Bulls team on defense, but again, you talked about it with Joakim Noah being able to switch on a point guard. It's unbelievable to watch. But not only that, what these other guys bring, such as a DJ Augustine and a Kirk Heinrich and a Taj Gibson and even Carlos Boozer playing consistent basketball last night. 16 points, 12 rebounds, but 6 of 12 shooting, and he shot 9 of 24 shooting on Monday night, so it was important that he shot well. So what's important for this Bulls team to stay and play consistent basketball from here on out, and to play consistent basketball from what they did last year? Last year, obviously, a terrific season and falling short in the second round against the Miami Heat. So how do they get back to that point with a much more depleted roster than last year's?
Well, obviously, first and foremost, everyone has to stay healthy from here on out. We've suffered enough injuries, obviously, with Derrick Rose being out for the rest of the season. It's going to make it hard to fulfill the expectations that I think everyone had in preseason for this Bulls team. But you hit the nail on the head. Carlos Boozer has to be able to score points for us. And I'm a Carlos Boozer fan. I like what he does. He's a 10-10 guy every night. He's averaging about 15 points, 8.5 to almost 9 rebounds a game on the season. He needs to score. And everyone talks about amnesty Carlos in the future, what's going to happen. But you're going to have to find someone that does what Carlos Boozer does and maybe does do a little bit more defensively where you think Carlos' shortcomings are defensively. But Carlos, night in and night out, is able to score for this Bulls team and put points on the board, and that stretches defenses out and really makes defenses key on other players, and that opens up the three-point shooting for Mike Dunleavy and a DJ Augustine, who really has been a godsend for the Bulls coming in after the injuries to Kirk Heinrich. And last night, you noticed Kirk's first game back in 5 games after a hamstring. DJ Augustine was still in the starting lineup, and I honestly feel that that's a great move by Tom Thibodeau, and DJ has earned a starting spot. But that also gives you the opportunity, like last night, to have Kirk Heinrich in the game in the fourth quarter, with not so many minutes as an older player, elder statesman, so to speak, on the team. And you can have his running the offense where Tom Thibodeau is really comfortable and confident that Kirk's not going to make mistakes. And even throw DJ Augustine at the 2 guard where he can come in and be the opposite guard for a 3-point shot threat with the defenses. So, but the thing about this team, they have to play together, and the sum of the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And because of the system they're playing in and what Tom Thibodeau has enforced and got them to establish here with his defensive scheme and what they run on offense. So if they can stay healthy and everyone goes out and does just what they need to do, this team will be fine. And with a little bit of luck, who knows what they can do in the playoffs.
Oh, absolutely. This Bulls team is impossible to predict. But you mentioned Carlos Boozer and how consistent he's been and how solid he's been for this team all year. And really, he's had his ups and downs as a Bull, but he comes to play every night, and I think a lot of fans respect that. But you mentioned the amnesty talk, and looking at Taj Gibson, maybe he brings a little more on the defensive end. But do you see his offensive game being able to fill that void? If they were to amnesty Carlos Boozer.
Well, Taj has been playing absolutely fantastic, and he's one of the reasons why the Bulls are doing so well right now. He's stepped up his offensive game. He's really found confidence in the low post with his little spin move to the baseline. He's coming back a little bit more when he's recognizing the double teams coming. He can get back to the middle to finish with his right hand instead of going with his left hand all the time. But he really has established himself now as a low post player, and he can hit that mid-range jump shot. So I think Taj's offense has come along enough. It's not a matter if Taj can fill that role. It's if you're going to amnesty Carlos Boozer, what are you going to get for that? Are you going to be able to go out and get a player that's going to provide what he's providing and or more than he's providing? I think that becomes the issue for me. And again, I'm not in the front office. I'm not privy to the conversations that Gar Forman and John Paxson are having day in and day out. But anytime you talk about, okay, let's just cut a player and get someone else, well, who else is out there? And right now, I don't see a lot of guys out there that are available that are going to average 15 points or more and or give you 8 to 10 rebounds every night. And sure, we'd love to say, yeah, that's great. Let's get rid of a player and we'll get another player. But if you're replacing him, you better get someone that's going to fill another need that you have. And obviously, right now, at times the Bulls have trouble putting points on the board, so you're going to have to find someone to put points on the board for the Bulls.
For sure. Bill, thank you for joining us here on the lineup, and we know you got a plane to catch, but we for sure enjoyed having you on here today, and we hope to have you back on soon.
Absolutely. It was fun. Take care, fellas. We'll talk to you soon.